Thanksgiving at the Dalton house always looked perfect, at least in the photos. The dining table could have been in a magazine spread, velvet runner, gold-rimmed plates, cinnamon sticks bundled with twine on each napkin like Martha Stewart personally blessed the centerpiece. But behind all that effort was the same thing it always was, a performance. And I was the understudy who never got called on stage. Every year I showed up. On time. With homemade mashed potatoes. Every year, I left early with the same hollow feeling in my chest, like I'd eaten nothing but air and awkward silence. My seat was always the same, near the garage door, next to the thermostat no one was allowed to touch. The Ethan seat. Not quite at the kids' table, not quite adult status either. Somewhere in the Bermuda Triangle of family respect. I'm Ethan. 30 years old, HVAC technician, own my own truck, paid off my credit cards last year, and recently finished replacing the AC units in 3 apartment buildings. Blue collar to the bone. No degrees, no scholarships, no graduation party with a banner strung across the garage like my brother got. Just calluses, invoices, and a bank account I protect like it owes me an apology. Aaron, my older brother, is the kind of guy you'd see in a LinkedIn commercial. Smooth hair, smooth voice, and a resume so padded it probably has its own mattress. He brought wine to dinner, a fancy bottle with a name no one could pronounce but everyone pretended to recognize. Mom practically uncorked it with her eyelashes. I brought my potatoes. No one said a word. I sat through 2 hours of Aaron monologues, his firm, his promotion, the apartment. Viewing the river. Not on the river, mind you, viewing it, which apparently is the new definition of luxury. I made one offhand comment about how at least in my job people are actually glad when I show up, and you'd think I slapped the turkey. Then dessert came. And that's when it happened. Aaron raised his glass with the smugness of someone who'd practiced the line. To the people who made us who we are. Dad nodded like he was being knighted. Mom dabbed at her eyes like this was a Hallmark movie. Then she looked at me. Same saccharine smile. And said, in a tone so calm it almost felt rehearsed. You've always been, well, let's be honest, kind of a burden. It wasn't a joke. There was no punchline. She said it like she was discussing the weather. Like it was just a known fact, like, we're out of cranberry sauce, and Ethan's a burden. Aaron smirked. At least I make this family proud. And that was it. That was the moment. No fight. No yelling. No dramatic declaration. Just me, standing up, pushing my chair neatly like I'd been raised better than they gave me credit for, and walking toward the door. I didn't say a word. Didn't take a to-go plate. Didn't grab my coat. It was cold outside, but I figured a chill wouldn't kill me nearly as fast as staying in that room might. I stepped out into the November night, and felt something I hadn't felt in years, clarity. Like I'd finally stopped pretending. The air was cold, sharp, real. Unlike the warmth inside, which was conditional and curated like everything else they put on display. I drove home in silence. No music. Just the hum of the road and the whirring thoughts in my head, racing through every quiet slight, every backhanded compliment, every time I was left out, looked over, or written off. And somewhere between their street and mine, I realized something simple and brutal. I was done. The silence after Thanksgiving was loud. I didn't text. They didn't call. No apologies, no explanations. Just the familiar hum of being ignored, something I'd trained from my entire childhood. I spent the next few days doing what I always did, working. Monday morning, I was crawling through an attic installing ductwork. Tuesday, I replaced a failing rooftop unit in 40-mile-per-hour winds. Wednesday, I helped a retired couple in their 70s get their heat back on, and they paid me with cookies and tears. Actual tears. Funny how strangers can show more appreciation in 10 minutes than your family can in 30 years. By Friday, I started sleeping better. Not out of peace, but because I wasn't rehearsing conversations in my head anymore. I wasn't planning comebacks. I wasn't trying to win. I was just letting go. Then came December 1st. That was the day the mortgage was supposed to autopay. For 3 years, I'd been covering it. $1,428. $72 every month. I started it after Dad hurt his back and their savings vanished faster than Aaron's humility at a dinner party. At the time, Mom called crying, saying they'd lose the house. Just a little help until things stabilize. Nothing ever stabilized. I just became the solution they never mentioned again. They never offered to pay it back. They never told Aaron. They never even said thank you. So, after Thanksgiving, I quietly logged in and turned off the payment. I didn't do it out of spite. I did it out of clarity. They wanted me to be invisible? Fine. Let my money disappear too. December 5th, I got my first text from Mom. It wasn't an apology. It wasn't even a sentence. Just, "Hope you're okay." No punctuation. No warmth. Just the digital version of a shrug. I didn't respond. December 7th, Aaron posted a photo of himself on a ski slope. Caption: "Grind hard, play harder." Interesting choice, considering he never worked a manual job in his life and once cried because his Uber had the wrong temperature setting. Meanwhile, I was replacing an HVAC system in a dentist's office while snow piled up on my toolbox. December 10th, Mom tried again. "Can we talk soon? It's been weird." Weird. That was the word she used. Not hurtful. Not cruel. Not, "We realized we crossed the line." Just weird, like she'd accidentally left the oven on too long, not called her own son a burden in front of a room full of people. I left the message on read. On December 12th, the first mortgage notice arrived at their house. I knew because Dad accidentally forwarded it to me. Yup, forwarded. Not even a, "Hey Ethan, did something happen?" Just the bank's email, dropped into my inbox like a mystery I was expected to solve. A minute later, he followed up with, "Did the auto payment get messed up?" Messed up? That was rich. No one asked me to start paying it, but they sure acted like it was mine to manage when it went missing. I didn't reply that day. Honestly, I wasn't sure what to say. Part of me wanted to unleash a year's worth of frustration in a single, flaming paragraph. Another part wanted to send nothing at all. But mostly, I wanted to make sure they felt the same silence they'd always given me. And silence, I'd learned, can echo. The next morning, I woke up to 3 missed calls. All from Dad. The voicemail was short. "Ethan, we need to talk. Call me back." No. "How are you?" No. "We're sorry." Just that same expectation, that I'd clean up the mess like I always had. I made coffee. Sat on my back porch. Let the winter air sting my skin a little. And I waited. Not for them. But for the right words. Because the old me would have folded by now. The new me? He was just getting started. Dad called again the next day. Then again. And again. By the 4th time, I got a text, no greeting, just, "This is serious. Why haven't you called?" I stared at the screen for a full minute, debating whether to respond with a meme, a billing statement, or just nothing. I chose none of the above. I put the phone down and went to work. I had an emergency no-heat call in a duplex across town, and a space heater in my passenger seat that probably got more love than I ever did growing up. I fixed the problem, drank a lukewarm gas station coffee, and made it back to the shop by sunset. My phone had 4 more missed calls and a voicemail that sounded like Dad was rehearsing for a weather emergency hotline. "Ethan, the payment is still missing. I don't know what happened, but this isn't like you. We're behind now. Just call me back." He said it like I was the one who failed him. Like he didn't remember what happened at Thanksgiving, or maybe just hoped I didn't. At this point, part of me wanted to ignore it forever. Let them sit in their own silence. But a bigger part of me, the one that used to shrink when they sighed at me, or rolled their eyes when I mentioned anything about work, wanted to pick up. Not to fix it. Just to watch what happens when the burden stopped carrying them. So I did. It was 7:43 p.m. I still remember the exact time because I was holding my phone with one hand and a wrench with the other. Poetic. I tapped accept. "Ethan?" Dad answered like I was a customer who'd finally paid an overdue invoice. "Yeah," I said, as flat as the thermostat reading in their frozen living room. I've been trying to reach you. The mortgage, the payment didn't go through this month. Do you know anything about that? No, how've you been? No mention of Thanksgiving. Just straight to the transaction. I didn't answer right away. I let the silence breathe. Let it stretch until he cleared his throat. Well? He prompted. I took a long sip of my water, then said calmly, like I was reading off a weather forecast. I stopped the payments. Pause. You what? I stopped paying the mortgage. Another pause, longer this time. You could practically hear his worldview cracking like drywall under pressure. But why? Did something happen? Now that was rich. Something happen? I repeated, almost amused. You mean besides being called a burden at Thanksgiving? Or Aaron saying he's the only one you're proud of? Or sitting through 30 years of being treated like a utility bill with legs? Ethan, he started, his voice lowering like I was being dramatic now. Your mother didn't mean it like that. Oh, I'm sure she meant it in the warmest way possible. I said. Probably embroidered it on a pillow by now. He sighed, the kind of sigh parents use when they think you're the problem for pointing out theirs. Look, we're behind now. I don't know if you're trying to make a point or what, but... I cut him off. Calmly. Firmly. If you've got questions about finances, Dad, ask your golden boy. Silence. Dead silence. Then, Ethan, this isn't his responsibility. Neither was it mine. Click. I hung up. No yelling. No cursing. No heat. Just clarity. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel small or guilty or unsure. I felt like someone who finally realized. Just because they expected you to carry the weight didn't mean you had to. I expected silence. I got texts. A full chain of them, starting barely 30 minutes after I hung up on Dad. Mom, can we please talk? Mom again. It was just a comment, Ethan. I didn't mean it that way. Mom, 10 minutes later. We're all under stress. It was the holidays. Aaron, Dad said you're being dramatic. Again. That one made me laugh out loud. Again. As if standing up for yourself after 3 decades of being the family punching bag counted as a flair for the theatrical. I didn't respond to any of them. Instead, I grabbed a screwdriver and went back to repairing the busted blower in my client's attic. I wasn't being cold, I just finally realized that I didn't owe them my time, my energy, or my dignity. Not anymore. Later that night, as I was closing up my truck, I saw I had a voicemail from Mom. I figured it'd be another classic, gentle tone, weaponized guilt, a pinch of martyrdom. But I listened anyway. Ethan, honey. I've been thinking a lot. Maybe we didn't give you the attention you needed growing up. But you know we had to focus on Aaron. He had so much potential. You were always more independent. I paused the message. More independent? That's what we're calling it now. Being handed a second-hand winter coat at 14 and being told, make do? Skipping college because we just don't have it right now, maybe take a gap year. Paying their mortgage for 3 years while being called a burden in public? Yeah. Very independent. I didn't press play again. I deleted it. A few days later, I got a surprise visitor. Aaron. He pulled up in his shiny car, leased, of course, and stepped out wearing loafers that probably cost more than the torque wrench I'd been using that morning. I was out front, tightening a pipe on the side of a unit, grease on my shirt and wind in my face. The contrast was comical. Hey, he said like we were on good terms. Didn't know you remembered where I lived, I replied without looking up. He smirked. Figured it was time to help the family peacemaker do his job. I stood up. You're here to make peace? I'm here to tell you you've made your point. They're freaking out. I wiped my hands on a rag. You mean because the house might get foreclosed? He shrugged. I mean, yeah. That's serious. But also, come on, we both know this is dramatic. There it was again. Dramatic. Their favorite label for any emotion that wasn't convenient for them. I looked him in the eye. Do you even know how much the mortgage is? I asked. He blinked. I mean, not exactly. Do you know what the interest rate is? He shrugged. Do you know how many months I paid it without saying a word? Look, Ethan. I stepped closer. Calm. Controlled. But firm. You've coasted through life thinking you're owed things because you have a nice smile and a degree. I fixed your air conditioning when you forgot to pay the guy. I helped you move. I showed up at your events. You never showed up for mine. He shifted his weight. This isn't about me. I smiled. That's what makes this fun. Because for once, it is. He looked like he wanted to say something clever. Probably had a TED Talk quote queued up. But instead, he just gave me a smug little half shrug and said, Fine. But don't expect them to come crawling. I leaned against the unit. Wasn't expecting anything. That's the luxury of being the burden. You stop expecting and start living. He got back in his car. Drove off with his Spotify playlist, probably telling him he was the main character. And me? I went back to work. Sun setting. Wrench in hand. Because the truth was, I wasn't angry anymore. I was free. It was a week after Aaron showed up when Mom decided to try the reasonable route. I got a message first, one of those overly polite texts that feels like it was copy-pasted from a therapy workbook. Hi, Ethan. I'd really appreciate the chance to talk, if you're open to it. I know things got tense. Maybe we can clear the air? Clear the air? As if we were talking about mild humidity and not 30 years of passive-aggressive favoritism served cold with cranberry sauce. Still, something in me, curiosity, maybe, made me say yes. We met at her favorite coffee shop, the one with rustic wooden tables and scones that cost more than my weekly gas bill. She was already seated when I walked in, nursing a tea she wasn't drinking and wearing the same tense smile I'd seen every time someone mentioned Aaron's name without also using the word. Brilliant. Hi, honey, she said, standing up like this was some normal brunch meetup. I nodded, sat down, and skipped the fake hug. Straight to business. She sighed. I want to start by saying, we all said things we didn't mean. Did we? I asked. She blinked. Excuse me? I didn't say anything, remember? I just stood up and left. Her lips tightened like she bit into something bitter. Well, I meant, it was a tense day. People get overwhelmed. Tense for me too. I said. I spent it realizing I was the only one at that table not pretending. Silence. Then, of course, she pivoted. Your father and I have been struggling, she said softly, looking down into her cup. The mortgage situation is serious. And I know we haven't always been the best at showing it, but we're grateful for what you've done. Oh? I tilted my head. You've shown that by. She didn't answer. Just reached into her purse and pulled out a folded sheet of paper. Slid it across the table. It was a bank document. A refinancing application, with my name already filled in. My full legal name. What is this? I asked, even though I already knew. She smoothed the edge of the paper like that would make it less insulting. We thought maybe, with your credit, and your steady work, you could take over the loan officially. Just to lock in a better rate. I stared at the paper. Then at her. Then I laughed. Not a cruel laugh. Not bitter. Just tired. You want me to own the house now? Well, it would still be our home, she said quickly. But it would help everyone. You're good with money. You could manage the payments better. We'd even consider listing you as co-owner eventually. Eventually, I echoed. She smiled like she'd made a generous offer. And for the first time in my life, I saw it clearly, not just the favoritism, not just the gaslighting. The complete lack of self-awareness. They didn't see me as family. They saw me as a safety net. A utility. A walking checkbook with plumbing experience. I folded the paper once, twice, slowly. Slid it back across the table. No. She blinked. What? I'm not signing that. I'm not refinancing your home. I'm not co-owning anything. I'm not rescuing anyone. Ethan. I paid your mortgage in silence for 3 years. You didn't even notice until it stopped. You called me a burden, and now that things are falling apart, I'm suddenly steady? I'm not your backup plan. I'm not your bailout. She looked stunned, not by what I said, but that I had the nerve to say it. You're seriously going to let us lose the house? I stood up slowly. You already lost something, Mom, I said. You just didn't notice when it walked out the door with the mashed potatoes. Then I walked out again. No coat. No second thoughts. Just freedom. The message came 3 days after I walked out of that coffee shop. It wasn't from Mom. It wasn't from Dad. It was from Aunt Linda, Dad's sister. The odd one out in the family who lived out of state and only showed up to holidays once every few years. She was the type who wore purple scarves and gave me books about stoicism when I was 12. Her text was simple. Ethan, I heard what happened. If you've got time, I think we should talk. It's overdue. I didn't answer at first. Honestly, I wasn't in the mood for another lecture masked as sympathy. But then I remembered something. She was the only one who used to slip me cash at birthdays. The only one who asked about my job without adding. So, when are you going to go back to school? And maybe, just maybe, she knew something the rest pretended didn't exist. So I called her. Her voice was warm. Not overly sweet. Just real. Hey, Ethan. I'm not going to beat around the bush. Your dad told me about the mortgage mess and said you were acting out. I figured that didn't sound like you. I snorted. Nope. I've been burdening in silence like a pro for years. She laughed. That tracks. Then she said it. I think it's time you knew what really happened with Grandpa's estate. I froze. His will? I asked. Yeah. The one you never saw. The one your parents told you wasn't really about money? I remembered that day vividly. I'd just gotten off a 14-hour shift, still in my work boots, when they called to say Grandpa had passed. I offered to fly out for the reading. Dad told me not to bother. There's nothing in it, he'd said. Just legal stuff. Linda sighed. That was a lie. I pulled over. Go on, I said. You were supposed to inherit the house, she said. The one your parents live in now. Grandpa put it in writing 2 years before he died. Said it was because Ethan's the one who shows up when the heat dies. He deserves some warmth for once. Those were his words. I didn't say anything. I couldn't. I asked your dad about it when I didn't see your name on the final title. She continued. He said you signed it over willingly? I knew that didn't sound right. I laughed, one short, bitter exhale. I never saw anything. No papers. No signature. Nothing. Then they forged it, she said flatly. Or buried it. My hands were shaking. Not with rage, not yet. With something quieter. Older. The kind of tremble that comes from realizing you weren't crazy all those years. That you really were treated differently, not because of paranoia, but because they decided you didn't matter. Why now? I asked. Why tell me now? She paused. Because I was wrong, too. I should have asked more questions. I should have followed up when you didn't show at the will reading. I thought, maybe it was your choice. But then I saw what they posted on Facebook last Thanksgiving. A group photo. You weren't in it. I closed my eyes. She continued. I've got a copy of the draft. Grandpa gave it to me, just in case. I'm mailing it to you. And then, as if it couldn't sting more, she added. You were always his favorite, Ethan. He just didn't brag about it. When the call ended, I sat there for a long time. Not angry. Not sad. Just still. Because for the first time, I wasn't just a burden. I was the one they were scared of being accountable to. The envelope arrived 2 days later. Thick, yellowed, hand-addressed in Aunt Linda's elegant cursive, the kind that made everything feel official, even without a notary stamp. Inside was a copy of Grandpa's original will. I made coffee, turned off my phone, and sat down at the kitchen table, the same one I bought second-hand when I first moved out, the one with the uneven leg and the dent from dropping a drill. and I read every single word. There it was, plain as daylight and twice as cutting. To my grandson Ethan, I leave the family home. He is the one who shows up when the pipes burst, when the AC fails, when no one else notices the cold. He deserves warmth, and I want him to have a place to build it. It was dated 2 years before Grandpa passed. 2 years before Dad told me. There wasn't anything in the will. 2 years before Mom said, Aaron just had more promise. And suddenly it all clicked. The mortgage payments. The fake refinancing papers. The way they kept me out of the will reading. It wasn't just favoritism. It was theft. They stole what was meant for me. Then let me pay for it. Quietly. While calling me a burden. I didn't cry. I didn't punch a wall. I just stared at that paragraph and let it settle in like insulation, not warm, not soft, but protective. Because now, I didn't need to prove anything to anyone. I knew the truth. I called a lawyer the next morning. Not to sue. Not to start a fight. Just to confirm what I already suspected. The official title was transferred 3 months after Grandpa died, directly to my father, bypassing probate entirely. Which, according to my lawyer, was deeply suspicious. He raised his eyebrows when I handed him the copy of the original will. Well, this is something, he said. You realize you may have a strong case to reclaim ownership? I nodded. I do. Do you want to pursue it? I thought about it. Really thought about it. About dragging them to court. Forcing them to explain themselves in front of a judge. Watching Aaron squirm while wearing a blazer that probably cost more than his conscience. But then I shook my head. No, I said. I'm not interested in taking back the house. The lawyer looked confused. Then, what are you hoping to do? I smiled. I want them to lose it. I didn't lift a finger when the foreclosure notice came. Didn't warn them. Didn't check in. Didn't offer help. They sent a few more messages. Mostly from Dad, who'd switched tactics from anger to guilt. Don't punish your mother like this, he wrote. As if Mom hadn't slid a refinance form across the table like it was a favor. Aaron texted once too. Guess you think you've won, huh? I didn't answer. What was there to win? They'd already lost, not just the house, but the one person who ever quietly held it all together. I just let it happen. Weeks passed. Winter hit hard. I worked. I laughed. I slept. And on a rainy Tuesday morning, as I was finishing an install in a downtown high-rise, I got an email from my lawyer. The house has officially entered auction status. Public listing will go live next week. Would you like me to monitor the bids? I stared at the screen. Then typed one word. Yes. The house went up for auction on a Thursday morning. By noon there were 6 bids. By Friday 8. By the following Monday, I won. Clean. Legal. Quiet. Just the way they always like things. I didn't tell anyone. No calls. No letters. Not even a sarcastic group chat message. I just let the deed transfer. The same house I'd once fixed a water heater in at 2 a.m. now had my name on the paperwork. Again. Except this time, it was official. The closing date was set for 3 weeks out. That gave the tenants, I mean my parents, time to either buy it back, which they couldn't, or vacate. According to the letters sent by the bank, they received notice on a Tuesday. According to my security camera footage, yes, the one I'd installed when I was 22 and they forgot I had access to, Mom stood in the driveway for over an hour, just holding the envelope like it might self-destruct. Dad paced behind her. Aaron never showed. 3 days later, I got the first call. Blocked number. I didn't answer. Then came the second. Voicemail. Ethan, please. We didn't know. We thought we were protecting you. Don't let it end like this. I stared at the wall, sipping coffee I brewed in a kitchen I owned. Funny how people start begging for family after the money disappears. A week passed. Then I got a text. From Aaron. Guess you got what you wanted. House is yours. Happy now? I almost replied, You can keep the Thanksgiving centerpiece. I'm good. But I didn't. Silence had worked wonders so far. No reason to switch strategies now. Closing day came. I didn't go to the house. I didn't need to. Instead, I drove across town to the office of a sweet retired couple who'd been looking for a rental since their condo flooded. We shook hands. They signed the lease. And just like that, the house had warmth again. The next day, I received one final message. From Mom. Just 4 words. We don't understand you. And for the first time in my life, I smiled. Because finally, they didn't. 1 week later, I passed by the old house while driving a service van to a nearby job. The porch lights were on. A wreath hung crooked on the door. The curtains were open, different ones. The kind that say this place has been scrubbed clean. A little girl peeked out through the window. Her grandpa, the new tenant, waved at me from the yard. He just finished planting something. I waved back. Didn't stop. Didn't slow down. But as I passed the edge of the property, I noticed something new, a small wooden sign, painted by hand. Home is where the heat works. No idea if the new family put that there, or if the universe just finally had a sense of humor. Either way, I smiled. And drove on.